Hello YouTube. Well guys, I'm out here at the Buick again and just going to update you real quick. My torque converter clutch solenoid replacement went fine. Everything's been going great with that, so happy about that. So I'm on to something else that was giving a little trouble with this car. This is a Buick 3300 V6. It's a derivative of the 3800. It's just a smaller cubic inch displacement version of that engine, but a lot of things are the same on it. So what was going on with this car is the starter, occasionally when I start the engine up, just as the engine catches and runs, the starter will just make a really horrible, it's just like if you turn the key with the engine already running, it goes shriek. It makes that same bad horrible noise of the teeth hitting the flywheel. And I'm not sure what's going on with that. I know that this car has a remanufactured starter on it, and those, I do not like remanufactured starters because they're normally inferior to the original starters in a few different ways. One of the first things is that normally when they remanufacture them, the components that make up the starter, like the nose cone, the armature housing, nose cone, all that, they do not normally all stay together. So you have, like, for a certain type of starter, like starters that go on 3800s, 3300s, 3.0s, whatever, they may have a pile of nose cones over here, gear housings over here, whatever. They may have a pile of armature housings over here, they may have a pile of whatever, you know. So, and they just put these things together, so, you know, this part came from this starter, but anyway, it's kind of a conglomeration. So that's one of the reasons. And then the second reason is they usually use cheap components to rebuild them with, so they don't normally last as long. And the third thing is that the part of the starter that bolts to the engine there, those things, when they clean those, they bead black. They probably, what they do is they tumble them to clean them, and when they do that, that gets the tolerances out of whack on them. So the part that bolts up to the engine may not be as far, you know, this, if I can explain it correctly. Say you had the part that got a bolt through it that bolts the engine, and it was originally this long, and then when they got done with their tumbling and they may have surfaced the surface down to make it level, it's shorter than it was. So you've got the armature is effectively closer to the flywheel after all this goes on, so you got a noisy starter that doesn't engage correctly. Any number of things could be going on. Usually they're just way out of tolerance and they're just a piece of shit. So if you ever have a starter go out, I know that everybody likes to do the convenient thing and go down to the corner parts store and buy a remanufactured starter, but try not to do that. Try to take it and have it rebuilt at a reputable alternator and starter place, electrical service place like that does that. A lot of large cities and most large towns still have somebody that does that, or at least buy a new starter that's got all new parts in it. Don't buy one of those piece of crap remans. I don't ever use those. So I figure that's what's going on with this one, is that remanufactured starter, it's only got about 10,000 miles on it, but it's just probably not a good start to begin with. They probably, the place that put this on was the same place that did all the rest of the work on this car, which they screwed some things up, but they probably, we'll find out, but they probably use the very cheapest remanufactured starter they can find on it. So I originally went to the junkyard. There's one of these cars that's just a virtual twin to this car in every way at the junkyard that got rammed in the rear end real hard. So my first idea was to go out and grab the starter off that car because it had not 92,000 miles on it. So I figured that it would have the original starter still on it. Well, I got out there, and believe it or not, that car had already had another starter put on it, and it was a remanufactured crapo starter, so that wasn't going to work. So I went to plan B, and here's plan B. Plan B is that you can use the newer style starter, which is, some people call them a gear reduction, some people, I don't think they are a gear reduction in this one, but some people call them a PMAG, permanent magnet starter, but this is a newer style Buick V6 starter. You guys got a pretty nice Dodge right there. But this is a newer style starter, and this should, in theory, if everybody who's posted on the internet is correct, this should go right on this 3300, and it's smaller, more lightweight, more powerful than the one that's on it. The one that's on it's the old style that's evidently not a very durable design. So I picked this up from LKQ instead of, I tried to find one out at the other junkyard, the cheap junkyard, but I couldn't find one that I could get to. So this is the one I came up with. This came off of a 2004 Pontiac Bonneville with a 3800 Series 2 in it. And so we'll find out that this should go, hopefully this should go right on here. It's just got 2 bolts. It's got one long one, one short one. The long one's at the back against the block, and the one towards the, you know, crankcase, and then the one out here, it sits on the car like this. So, and it's just got 2 connections on it. Same as all the other ones. It's got a battery connection, the large battery wire there, and then the solenoid trigger connection from the switch. And I cut that because I didn't have the, stupidly I always go out and never have all the tools I need when I go to the junkyard, so I had to snip that wire, but that's no big deal. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to pull the one that's on the Buick right now, and we'll take a look at it and see if there's anything of interest on it. I doubt there is, but it has a sticker on it, so I'm sure I can go in real quick and figure out which starter that is. So I'll see you then. Oh, by the way, these are 15mm bolts, so should be no problem to get these out. And this starter did not have a shim on it. Sometimes I have a shim between the block and the starter housing here, which this one didn't, so I'm not going to put one back in it. And that may be what's wrong with this one. This one may need a shim in it, but I think that's one thing I've always not liked about GM starters. It's a stupid idea to put shims in it. You know, Chrysler back here can design a starter and an engine that you just bolt the thing in from the front, and it bolts in one spot, and it always works, just like Ford's always worked. But GM, for some reason, never was able to do that the right way. So some might need a shim, some might not. How, you know, you got to do all this bull crap and putting a piece of wire, small wire in there and measuring this clear. So I'm not doing that. So this one, put it on. This one better work. Alright, so let's do that. Let's get the battery disconnected, and I'll jack the car up, put the jack stand in it, and we'll go in and get that old one pulled out of there. Okay, we're underneath the front here looking at the starter, and this is it right here. This is the cradle, the oil pan, engine oil pan, and transmission pan, so you kind of orient you where you're at. And there's only 2 bolts on the starter, but there's same as the car I pulled the one off of. It's got a little shield right here, this little plastic shield. It's got supposed to have a bolt right there, and then I think the back one is going to be this one towards the front. If you can see it right there at the 10. I'm going to take that out. I think that's 2-piece. That's a 2-piece, like a little shield. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that one, and then what we're going to do after that is we're going to go ahead. I've got the battery disconnected. You've got a series of wires here, but it's real simple. You've got the purple wire, which is a solenoid trigger wire. You take that off that little stud, and then you take the other nut loose up there, and that's got all the rest of the wires go to that one connection, and this is like a lot of GMs. It's got fusible links in the wires that go. Those are your power wires. Those that pink and blue, I guess it is, and the other orange. Maybe those are orange, whatever they are. But anyway, they've got fusible links in them, so that's so if something happens and there's a short inside the car, then it'll blow those. Those are one use only. If you ever blow a fusible link, it burns in two, that's it. You got to replace it. But so that's what happens. It's sort of a safety valve there. So if you ever have one of these cars, any kind of GM car, that you just suddenly lose power and the battery's disconnected and you think you might have shorted something, you come down here and check these fusible links, and it's real easy to do that. You just check the side that's on the source side, which is on that's connected to the battery by way of that stud there, and the battery cable. You take a multimeter, you check for continuity between that end there, and then check it on the down. What am I hitting here? What did I do here? You check it on the downstream side down here someplace. So if you got an open in those, you know that's blown. You got to replace them. So anyway, I'm going to work on that and work on getting this starter out. So I'll see you there. Oh, by the way, I looked at this, and this is a Ultima. If you can read in there, I think it might be Advance's brand, but it's remanufactured. So we're going to replace it anyway. It's working, but it's not working too great. Okay, hope you can see in here. I'm just taking off this small solenoid trigger wire here. Just kidding. So this was a 5/16 nut. So just get that out of the way. And then on the other car, this was a 13, this large one. So I'm going to guess that that's what this one is. I'm going to try that first, because a lot of stuff on this is metric. And by the way, where's my light? I'll show you something here. You see all this oil that's leaking out over here under this compressor? If you look right on the body of that compressor right there, there's actually oil on it. That ain't good, because that compressor is leaking oil out, which these are known to do. This is this famous H6, I think it is, compressor, and these things are such crap that they leak in the joints of the body themselves. So it's gonna need a compressor, like all of them do. Or I can just do what everybody else does and ride around with the windows down when it fails, but I'm not gonna go that far with it. I'm gonna probably just quit using it for right now. It does work. Probably just quit using it right now, and while it's still, why it hasn't, I guess why it hasn't ruined itself. But if I keep running it like that and it runs out of oil, it's gonna fail. It's gonna send metal and debris all through the system, and the whole damn thing's gonna have to be flush, which it probably will be anyway when you put a new compressor on it, of course. But I've toyed around with the idea of doing what one of the guys on the abody.net forums done a lot. He works on a lot of these cars, and he charges them back up with duster spray, but I'm not sure I want to go there. I might just pay out the end to put R12 back in it. R12 is what it came with, R12 is what it uses. So I guess I'm not much of an experimenter with air conditionings. But anyway, that's for another day. So let's get on with getting the starter off there. I want to just show you real quick. I got that 13mm nut off of there. Just show you what's on that large solenoid terminal up there. This is the battery cable, the positive end of the positive battery cable from the battery. And then you have these two power. There's actually three, but there's one that's made into one, two that's made into one connection, like right there. And then there's a third one, or a second one, however you want to view it. It goes right there, but those all go on that large terminal. So I'm going to get those tucked up out of the way right now, because I'm not the manhandle them, because we got to, in fact, this whole thing needs to be. Now you see why you don't do this with the battery connected. Don't ever change a starter with the battery connected. There's a clamp right here holding this wire in, and I bet I can undo this bolt right here and get that loose because it's kind of in my way. So let me see if I can do that, and then I'll have room to maneuver the starter out. Alright, let's go back and take a look where we're at. We've got this bolt coming out, and it is, you look straight up in here, you probably can't see nothing. Light. How many times in these videos do I ever say that? Where's the light? Where's the light? Okay, we're looking straight up, and you look between the oil pan and the cradle, and there's the rear bolt. That's a 15. And boy, that thing was in there. So this starter, man, this starter's like jammed way up against the, almost right against the oil pan. So makes me wonder if it wasn't sitting in there the right way, but that's just theory. So we're gonna take that one out, and then we're gonna take the front one out, which is right there. So 2 bolts, and you just wiggle the starter out after you do that. Okay, then there is the old remanufactured starter beside the new style original GM starter, and you can see huge size difference in it. It's a lot lighter, it's a lot more streamlined, should be a lot more room to maneuver under there. So yeah, buddy, so we're going to throw that thing on there. That's the same basic design starter that they've been using for 50 years on GM starters. So, and for whatever reason, I've seen plenty of those type there, the old styles, failed, replaced on stuff like this. I don't quite understand what's killing them, but something evidently is. So, okay then, we'll proceed on. Okay, there it is, all installed, neat as a pin, everything back together. Put the heat shield back on, or dust shield, put the bolt back in the bracket, works great. That's how you do it. And again, this came off of a 2004 Series 2, you can probably get one from a 99 on up through the last that they made them. It should work fine. So, dude, you're retired.